Okay, let us start with the chapter number 6, Kingdom, King, and Early Republic. So, this is all about the evolution when the territory which is fought for the war were fought for the pasture ground and for the cattle now shifted to the land. Now, what the land mean? Land mean for a territory to be permanent. It is not about the pasture land. It is not about that. It is about controlling the land and their people. So, how this changes happens is going to study in this chapter. So, choosing leader or rulers by voting is something that has become common during the last 50 years. Means that is democracy election, it's been common in the last 50 years. But around 3000 years ago, when there was nothing like this, change take place in the way which Rajas were chosen at some time. The in the in the Vedic era, we have seen that the post of Raja was not an hereditary post, and that was that was that was chosen by the leaders of by the Jan, and they act like a Raja. Now, some men recognized as Raja by performing big sacrifices like Aswamedh, where a horse was let loose to wander freely and it was guarded by the Raja men. If the horse wandered into the kingdom of other Raja and they stopped it, they had to fight, and if they allowed to pass the horse, it means that they accepted that Raja wanted to perform the sacrifice was stronger than them. The Raja who organized the sacrifice was recognized as being very powerful, and all the other kingdoms who got subjugated, they present gift to them, became the central figure. So, what is changing? By performing big sacrifices, the importance of priest is changing because the position of priest is to advise the king Purohit, but by connoting a person as a Raja by big sacrifices means the position of priest is going to change and they are going to be highly respected. So the Aswamedh Yag, which is for the expansion of territory and subjugation of other rulers or other rajas, so it is something that is a starting off expansion of territory and religious sanctions to perform and being a king. Okay, so this is what the things are changing. Now, before moving next, I asked you in the previous chapter about classical language and how classical language are declared. So here are some points which is mentioned here, that there should be extraordinary antiquity and should have a history of 1500 to 2000 years, should have ancient literature, a valuable heritage to be spoken by the generations of speakers. They should have literary traditions, should be unique and not hired from other language community. There must have to be diverse, a you know being diverse from the modern view of language, and should have a special classical language, its form and its structure. Now the thing remains same. It is okay that we know that there should be some criteria, but how classical language are promoted? There are some points that two major annual international awards for a scholar of eminence in classical language is there. Second, a center of excellence for the study in the classical language is set up. Like University Grant Commission is requested to create To start, at least in the Central University, a number of professional chairs for the classical language so declared till date. In 2019, Lok Sabha Ministry of Culture listed the institution have been dedicated to the classical language, and it is important to remember some of them. There are two major annual awards for scholars of eminence. There are Center of Excellence in their study to be set up. The University Grant Commission has been mandated to create and declare some department and professional chair for the classical language. Also, there are many universities which have been mentioned here, like for Sanskrit, there is Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan, Maharshi Sandipani Rashtriya Vedya Vidya Pratishthan, there is Ujjain Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapit, and all. For Telugu and Kannada, there are Center of Excellence and like Central Institute of Indian Language established by HRD. For Tamil, we have Central Institute of Classical Language Chennai. Now we have Tamil, which is declared in 2004, Sanskrit in 2005, Kannada in 2008, Telugu in 2008, Malayalam 2013, Odia 2014. We have to remember all these things in a very subsequent manner in order to be well in classical language. Now, moving to the next one, we were on the Sumerian and expansion of territory with the religious sanctions. Now there are chanted tales of glory of the king who performed Asumedh, and there are sprinkling of scared water on the king. Okay, and the ordinary people, the Vish also brought gift and they sent gift. Now we have bird. There are many books were composed in the North India. There were a number of books which were called latter Vedic books, and they were composed after Rigveda. That is why called latter Vedic. This includes Samved, Yajurved, Atharvaved. So the priest divided the people into four groups called burn. According to them, each burn has a different set of functions. The first burn, that was Brahmins, were expected to study and teach. In the second, there were rulers who known as Kshatriya, and the third one is the best, and they were expected to be farmers and herders. And then the last, that was Sudra. Often women are also grouped with the Sudra. They were not allowed to study the Vedas. But one thing is to remember, it is very important point. Also, there were many areas in the subcontinent, as like in northeast, where social and economic difference were not very sharp. There were very few influence of the priest was there. Why so? Because in tribes which we study in the previous chapter, they have a common goal and they have a system of their own, and they do not have economic differences. So it is important to compare the situation at that point of time. Before leaving this Varna system, I would like to ask you that in which mandal of Rigveda Varna system has been mentioned, and what is the importance and when it was added in the Rigveda. It was added in its initial phase or in its latter phases. So you must have to search it out. Now the black and red ware system has been replaced by painted grey ware. Plates and ball made out of printed grey ware an extremely fine touch, nice, smooth surface. And they were important peoples for importance people. It is not for the common, so it is for a special food. This is what painted graveyard look like. It looks sweet. Now we have Janpads. The Raja who performed big sacrifices were now recognized as being Raja of Janpad rather than Jan. The word Janpad literally means land where Jan sets its foot, like Hastinapur, Atranji Khera. So there are some territorial connotation which have been given and religious sanctions have been provided to Raja. Now, one special type of pottery which is found at this site is known as painted graveware, which we have studied. As its obvious name, the grey pot has painted design and usually simple lines in geometrical pattern. Now, what about Jan Mahajanpads? There are more important. They are more important than others. But the evolution of Mahajanpad is that the Janpads, some Janpads may are some very important than others, and they were known as Mahajanpad. So Mahajanpad had a capital city, and many of these were fortified. This means huge wall, wood, brick, stones were built around them. Why so? Because they all are situated on a trade route, and these cities, when they were evolving, they were the center of trade. And since they were center of trade, there were some social evils which who can, you know, destroy the product or loot. So, in order to save them and safeguard them, there were some amount of wall protection to be there, and that is how the cities and its importance increases and the rise of Mahajanpat. But it had forts probably built because people were afraid of attacks from the kings and needed protection. So it is likely to show some rulers that how rich and powerful I am by building really large, tall, and impressive buildings around the cities. Also, in this way, the people living inside the fortified area could be controlled more easily by the king, and by controlling the peoples they can control the business. By controlling business they could generate revenue, and by generating revenue they can build more and more monuments, more houses, more buildings, more infrastructure. That is what building such as usual requires great deal of planning. Okay, you have to be quick about the words like planning. That involves planning. It means they must have some amount of skill, knowledge, and all. Okay, we must have to remember this. Now, there is need of finance. This led to tax and tributes also, and they also led to trade and commerce, and trade and commerce will flourish if there is safe environment, and this safe environment requires army. And this is not about army on the Ekta system but on standing army. This is a fortification of wall, okay, near the Kosombi, and this seems very large and we have to visit it in our later phase, but still we have to represent, we have to study in order to visit there. Now we have the new Raja begin maintaining the army. Soldiers were paid regular salary, and maintained by the king throughout the year. A point you have to remember that it is about punch marked coin. They now have a standing army, Now they have punched mark coins, like they have their image, they have any animal's image, they have anything written there, they are punched separately. Okay, that is why they are known as punched mark coin. If it is a coin here, then the punching should be like animal should be punched once. Then you have a new point is to be punched here. So they all are punched separately, and that is why they are known as punched mark coin. Now we have taxes. As the rulers of Mahajanpads were building huge forts, maintaining big armies, they need resources, and they appointed officials to collect these, and this is how administration begins. Administration begins. So you came to know that being a nomad human, we evolved to a system where tax is imposed, where officials are appointed, a well administration is going to develop. So there are collection of tax, there are occasional gifts, they have to be given by the peoples of Janpad. Now they collected regular taxes, and these regular taxes helped him to make more and more infrastructure, more and more secure army, and to also raid other cities. Now, what we have, that taxes on the crops were the most important. So, one-sixth of the what produced from agriculture is known as bhag. It is not necessary to remember one-sixth, but it is to remember that there was a tax known as bhag in the Mahajanpads era. There are craft persons who form the labor. They have to work for a day or month for free. There are herders who expected to pay taxes in the form of animal produce. There were also taxes on the goods that were brought and sold through the trade. There were also hunter and gather. They provided forest produce to the king. Like producer provide one-sixth, that is known as bhag. Then craft, that is free labor. Then herders who provide animal produce, traders who provide goods and taxes, hunter-gatherer provides forest produce. Now we have to remember how Mahajanpat evolved, why since city develops our peoples used to do craft activity because they have surplus of food available. So one of the important reason for the development of Mahajanpat is change in agriculture. There were two major changes in the agriculture around this time. One was the growing use of iron plowshare, and the second, people began transplanting paddy. In chapter number 1, I told you about there are evidence of wild rice in Indian subcontinent, and it might have been from Allahabad. But after Vedic, in the post-Vedic era, people when they moved towards the eastern part of the subcontinent, particularly in the Ganga region, they began to use iron. It made their life simple. It helped them to clear forest. It protected them. It made them sufficient enough to control other one, to make weapons, and they also uh, they also get to know about transplanting paddy. Matlab, they have they have earlier a small amount of production, but now they have surplus amount of production. Means people could engage in other activity too. So this increased production, and due to transplanting of paddy, There is increase in production because many plant could be survived now, and it was back-breaking work. Generally, slave men, women, and landless agriculture. They are known as kammakaras. They had to work. It has not been done by anyone who were already engaged in trade activity or anything. This has been pushed to the slave, women's, and men and landless agricultural laborers. So this is how the agriculture develops. Now a closer look of some about Magad. Magad is important Mahajanpad, and Magad was important for transport, for water supply, for making the land fertile. The parts of Magad were forested. Elephant could be which lived in the forest could be captured and trained for the army. Forest also provided wood for building house, carts, and chariots. Because at that point of time, everyone do not have that sufficient sophisticated, you know, way to make house, but they could be used in many more things, like in making window, making doors. So a number of things could be used from the forest produce. They have iron ore mines which could make strong weapons and tools. So, what are the things that is in favor located with the three side of water? If you look in the map, you will see one is Ganga, there is a Son River, and this is how the Magad is. Why three side of water? One more river is there. I am not going to remember. I am missing that name. So they have been two-sided, which have been by the Ganga and Son. So no one could easily cross the river and attack the kingdom. The transportation, since many of them feel that the route of the jungle is not good enough for the transportation of goods because of wild animals and loot. So the river transport was one of the easiest method and one of the secure method for the trading at that point of time. Since Magad was located at the main trade route to the North India, then they had fertile zone and forest cover which could be used in many purpose multitasking. There is elephant who could be used and trained, and also people grew sufficient amount of food. So forest produce used for variety of things, minerals like iron, revitalized the agriculture as well as army. And this were the reason why Magad was important. Magad had two very powerful rulers like Bimnisar and his son Ajatasattu. Then after that, there had it belongs to which dynasty? It is belonging to Haryanka dynasty. Now Mahapadman Nand, who was the important ruler, is very much influential person, and in his regime, Alexander attacked India, but he got afraid about the army of Mahapadmananda and he returned back. So that is what we have the capital of of Magad as Rajgiri, which is present day Rajgir in Bihar. Later, it was shifted to the Patliputra. Who shifted the capital to Patliputra? You have to answer and search it, and we will get answer in the latter phases of our study. Now we have Alexander who lived in Macedonia in Europe, wanted to become a world conqueror, and he did not conquer the world, but he did conquer parts of Egypt, West Asia, and came to Indian subcontinent. When he reached up to the Bias, he wanted to march forward, but her soldiers refused. They were scared as they heard about that the rulers of India had a vast army on foot, soldier, chariots, and elephant.
show how powerful the Magad was. Then there was a city known as Bhazi, Wazi. Then, while Magad was a very powerful kingdom, Wazi with its capital at Vaisali was under a different form of government known as Gun or Sung. In Gun and Sung, what happens? They used to perform rituals together. They discuss all the things together and take a democratic decision. When they were attacked by any enemy, they meet and discuss what should be done to meet the threat. Women, Das, Kamakuras not participate in these assemblies, and it is important point to remember. Now we have both Buddha and Mahabir who belongs to the Gansan, and later they will form their own religion of Buddhism and Jainism in the respectively. Now we have keywords here that we have already gone through. Now the account of Vazi from Dignikai is a famous book which contains some species of Buddha. Ajatsattu wanted to attack the Vaji. It's a very good story. He sent his minister Vashakar to the Buddha to get his advice on the matter. The Buddha asked whether the Vaji meets frequently in full assemblies. When he heard that they did, he replied that the Vaji would continue to prosper as long as they held full and frequent public assemblies. They met and acted together. They followed established rule. They respected, supported, and listened to others. Wazi women were not held by force or capture. Charity were maintained in both town and villages. While sent who followed different beliefs were respected and allowed to enter and leave the country freely. There are Rajas of powerful kingdom who tried to conquer Sangh for a long time. And when the last of the Gun and Sangh were conquered by the Gupta rulers, you will read about chap- them in chapter 11. Now we have the elsewhere find about the Greece, Athens, and all. They have the citizenship developed about the Socrates and Plato's at that point of time. There were about democracy, where all above age of 13 were recognized as full citizen. All can attend meeting, appointed made in the form of lottery. Citizens expected to be work on the army and navy. Women's were not considered as citizens. So this is all about chapter number 6, and we will deal with chapter number 7 in the lecture next. So